Sean Hernon, Malin to Mizen record holder, experienced ultra cyclist. Thanks for coming in today to talk about the Western Challenge. How are you keeping?
Yeah, good, Richie. Good. Yeah, I'm keeping well. Good to be here, and yeah, looking forward to the Western Challenge and coming up. And geez, not long to go now. 2 months, less than that maybe. Yeah.
And before we get into that, just tell us a little bit about your past events and experience. You know, especially the Malin to Mizen we mentioned.
Yeah, I suppose. Look, I currently hold the Mizen to Malin record from last September. It's probably my best day on the bike. That one, I was 17 hours 20 minutes. That one it took, and kind of a solid enough kind of 20 mile an hour kind of for the day, and not getting off the bike. So that's probably a kind of yeah, maybe my best day on the bike. But yeah, I've done lots of other stuff before that, probably things that are actually longer and distance. Like my first ever event was probably way back in 2009. Did the race around Ireland, like 2,200 kilometer. And I've done, I suppose, lots of ultra events in Ireland and abroad, the USA and the UK and places like that, over in Asia as well. So kind of, yeah, I suppose I've had an interest in it, the long distance, from going back over 10 years. But what's been interesting, I suppose, in the last 5 years is I've actually started to go for the shorter events, if you call it that. Like, so the 500k seems a long distance for me at the moment, but yeah, relatively speaking, it's short compared to some of the stuff I've done in the past.
And what drives you to do ultra distance? I mean, to a lot of people, it's like just that mental barrier of that kind of mileage is just.
Yeah, it's interesting to say that. Like, I mean, there's so many like good cyclists. Like, I've no doubt, yourself included, have no problem doing it. I think it's just, but I think there's a lot of people that like are brilliant cyclists. Like, let's say at the 100 kind of ish 160k mark, and if you have the fitness for that, there's no reason why any of those people can't like do really, really well in the ultras. It's just, but the mental challenge, I suppose, is it's the unknown for people. And yeah, it's probably the bit that kind of breaks probably a lot of people when they go and try it. Like, it's definitely worth trying, but yeah, it's I suppose I find that part it's fascinating, like, because every time you do an event, it's always going to be different, and you kind of I guess you kind of, the mental side, I use it as a gauge to see, like, how strong are you this year compared to last year, because I suppose it strips you down a lot. Like, when you're really like going on the bike 24 hours, you kind of, you have nowhere to go but kind of you have to look inward a bit and see what you're made of. And I'd say, I don't know, it's hard to answer that question exactly because each time is different, but there's definitely a mental part, and I kind of like that it forces you to kind of examine your mettle a bit,
And you got a good kind of a routine going over COVID. Like a lot of cyclists did, I think. But how's the training going at the moment now? Kind of real life and reality now kicking back in.
Yeah. Look, yeah, you're right. Like, I think that the last 2 years of COVID has been great, and I think that's what helped for my season last year was, prior to that would have been traveling to work probably 2.5 hours a day, and that really interrupted the flow. But the consistency probably is what helped more than anything last year. And yeah, so I was hoping to build on last year's results and I've kind of signed up for 3 or 4 ultras this year, but and up towards the end of February, all was going great. And then since the end of February for the last 2 months, it's been a challenge, I suppose. Yeah, just like between a 2-month-old baby in the house and a 2-year-old as well, that kind of makes life a little bit tricky. And yeah, I had COVID then in the house in the last about a month or back, and then hit by a car one day as well, but that was a small skirmish. So it's kind of it's good to be back. Yeah, in the last week and a half has been like back to what I'd say is regular training, and that's kind of, you get that hunger back now because you're not far to go. And yeah, so no, look, it's going good, but I think this year is it'll be interesting this year for me, because I because you can't, with the family side of it, you can only go out for, like, I'd say I'd be shot now if I went out for like 5 hours. So it's kind of it's what you can achieve on like as little as 2 hours. I suppose that's the challenge, but being consistent and doing the high intensity stuff maybe more so than the longer kind of, let's say, the base stuff. That's the thing. Yeah.
probably, I mean, a lot of people are in the same boat as yourself, you know, trying to deal with family, kids, job, all that kind of stuff, still trying to get training in. And it makes it even harder with, you know, when you're training for an endurance event. But like you say, it's consistency, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that is it. You know, if you get out every day, second day, you'd be surprised. You know, just it builds up very quickly. And I think that's, you know, certainly for me in the past, it would have been like going out maybe for longer spins of the weekend, but then work getting in the way and maybe kind of missing 3-4 days, sometimes 5 days, and then you're back at it. And you know, but if you're kind of able to keep at it like every day or second day, it's just that's where, you know, you find over 3 months, 4 months that really starts to show the results, I think. But I find as well, it's my experience in the ultras is that you don't need to do the big miles to get out there. You know, with the Mizen, Malin and things like that last year, it was you know, I'd say there were rare days where I went above 100 miles, you know. So it's just, I think if you have the base there, that if you can do 100k, 160k easily, you know, that'll carry you. It's just about having the consistency and the right mix, I suppose, of the high intensity stuff as well to.
And that would apply too for like people doing the 200 and the 300 kilometer versions of the Western Challenge as well. Just consistency, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, like whether you're doing the 200 or the, you know, you're looking at a minimum 6 hours probably out on the bike, and it's and then 9 to 12 or whenever it takes for the 300. Like, so it'd be it's just consistency, and you know, it's a big enough challenge. Actually, it's a good bit of climbing. It's a cracking route, but I think so it's manageable, I suppose, certainly on the 200.
Yeah, and I was just going to get on to that about the route. Tell us about your thoughts on the route, because just to give you a kind of an overview, you'll be starting on the prom in Galway. Now, most ultra events will be right start early in the morning. The 500k is going to start in the evening at sunset on the prom in Galway. Cracking setting, and you're going down the burn, through the burn, back up over the windmills. Well, soon to be no windmills in Derry Bryan, and then back up through like Loch Fouy and Connemara, around by Linan as the sun is coming up, around by Sky Road and Clifton, and back by I suppose your neck of the woods, back through South Connemara, all around by Carna, Kilkieran, and then back over just as a final painful little kicker, back over to the dreaded Shanna Feisteen, down into Uachtarard, back to Moycullen, back to Spiddle, zigzagging, and then back finishing on the prom. And it'll finish around the same time. Like the riders from the 200 and 300k who are starting that day will be on the same route then as well. So like everyone will be finishing afternoon, evening on the following day. So what are your impressions of the route and the in general?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, you called it out nicely there, Richard. I mean, it sounds great, and like it will be great. I think Owen has organised, like he's shown his pedigree, I think, with the, you know, the race league as well. You know, he's good at organising, and I've no doubt this is going to be possibly the best, you know, this year, if not best in coming years, kind of certainly for ultra events. And like, you know, but that starts and finishes probably with the route itself is a cracking route, and it's one that you want to do. You know, when this was announced end of last year, is like, look, the thoughts of going down the Burn and out Connemara and all those places you mentioned it's beautiful. Like, I'm from Connemara, and I just the colors out there, you know, on any given day, it's always like anytime you cycle out there and you know it well, it's different each time, you know, and I think the opportunity to do that, but us going down through the beautiful Burn and, you know, up Corkscrew Hill and all these places, like, it's going to be cracking. And then I suppose then you have the, you know, to start and finish on the prom, which is going to be wonderful. I think, you know, it's going to be a great race. It's well organized, and I think we're going to get some like really strong performances as well, probably going around the course. I mean, if you know, it's at the time of year, like, look, really long day as well, so it's a good opportunity for people to like really kind of get good kind of from 5 a.m. through to, you know, to up to 10, 11 at night. You're going to have the kind of daylight. So I think it's starting, and then at the evening time is going to be another big selling point. You know, you're starting off and you're still fresh and you're going through the night, because that's something a lot of people maybe are apprehensive about, that haven't, you know, I actually really like the night cycling, because, you know, the roads are quiet. You know when the cars are coming because the lights and stuff like that. So you can really, provided the lights of the car behind you are kind of have enough lights lighting the road, you can really get into it, and you kind of I don't know, there's something really peaceful about the night cycling. I really like, it's one of my favorite parts of like ultra cycling, really, like, because you don't get to do that normally, you know. And you know, and then you have the car there, like handing you out your food and water, like, you know, chaperone you the whole way. So no, I think it's cracking route, great setting.
Something, as you're saying there, is something a bit meditative about nighttime cycling, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I think so. There really is. Like, it's something like that comes, like, you know, I suppose, yeah, it's a bit meditative, you know. You're just repeatedly pedaling, and then there comes a point, like, you know, sometimes if you go out for like a 2-hour cycle, even it might take you half an hour for the mind to kind of settle down a bit. But when you really start getting into the ultra stuff, like, you know, out there 5-6 hours, like, you can really, I suppose the trick is not to let your mind wander, because you want to be focused, but at the same time, yeah, you do have this moments where it's really, yeah, you feel quite at peace, you know, calm, if yeah. And then you're looking around when you can and seeing the, you know, the lovely scenery. That's
going to be June, so there's always going to be a little bit of light in the sky, isn't there?
Yeah,
you're going to see the silhouettes of the 12 bends and the burn and the lighthouses. You know, it's going to be fairly special. And like, people always, you know, sometimes I'd go out really early in the morning, especially in the winter in the dark. People say, you're mad cycling at night. But if you have a good, like, when you have a good set of lights, cars give you a very wide berth at night. I've never had a close call with a car when it's dark. But yet, go out at twilight or during the day out Spiddle, Moycullen Road, you know, cars can come very close when you're on your own. Some people think that it's more dangerous at night, but actually nighttime, I think, is the safest time to cycle. Once you have lights, you know, it's
I agree with you, and particularly on the country roads as well. If you're going out on the smaller roads, it's because, you know, you can take that risk almost and go wide on the bends, because you'll know if a car light is coming. So if anything, it gives you a little bit more security. Like, you wouldn't take those risks in the daytime. And yeah, probably like you, I've noticed that in the daytime, it's more likely the close calls are, like, you know, either getting the hits or not in the daytime, when people should see you. So I think it's you know, for anyone who's considering getting into ultras, like, it's a cracking route and fully supported. And
you're saying Owen McGrath there organising it. You know, better man now to organise a race or an event like he's ever down to a T. You know, every inch of that road sussed, every corner. Great safe route as well for cyclists. And, you know, you're going through two of the best cycling areas of the country, the Burn, Connemara. You're going back through your home territory now. You'd be drilling it, I'd say.
I know. I'll need to drop the power when I'm back in Connemara now, and I save it for the home start. But I think it'll be a lovely finish as well, because, you know, when you mentioned you'll be coming up over Shenafeisteen and then, like, kind of looping back then over the kind of Moycullen Spiddle loop as well at the finish. And you know, these are, like, probably, like, for anyone based around Galway, they're on these roads a lot, and, you know, they're great roads, and the scenery. So no, I think it's a fantastic course, and I've no doubt, you know, for anyone who probably outside of Galway was considering it, it's you know, it's a great opportunity, probably, just to see two great spots, the Burn and West, you know, Galway.
And then to finish on the prom then is, you know, it'd be such a buzz.
Yeah. No, of course, especially like that time of year, like, you know, it's going to be absolutely buzzing. So you'd be kind of finished on the Saturday afternoon, you know, evening, and it's a great spot, you know. And I think that helps as well as starting on the Friday evening. So, you know, I think that's, for me anyways, and I think a lot for people of family and stuff like that, you kind of want to, you can almost like turn up that morning or afternoon and then get going, and you're finished on the Saturday evening, you know. And I think that's where
a good draw
more
for
races
people
are moving to as well, because it's nobody really wants to be coming down, and you don't have that luxury of taking a few days, a lot of time to be kind of getting ready before the race, you know, and stuff like that. So
give us a brief overview of how you're going to fuel yourself for this event.
Yeah, so I'm doing the
5 gels now from the first 10k out. Like, sometimes you see them mad firing gels into them.
Try. Well, I suppose that's it. Maybe that's a good place to start. Probably stay away from the gels for like the I'd say even for the 200, 300, you know, I mean, look, I suppose if the 200 you're looking at probably still, I don't know, you might get someone super fast, but you know, you're talking at least 6 hours probably, and then the 300, you know, it could be 10 hours, and you know, anything 17 to 20 something odd hours for the other one. So it's a long enough, basically, like for the 65 to 5, you know, you need to get things right. And I think gels should probably, there's a time for them if you're really stuck, kind of particularly near the end or big climb. But generally they spike you too much, so you want to be a bit more consistent. The other thing I suppose with the ultras is generally you want to be maybe a little bit less than what you pack in on a 5-hour ride or something, because like my experience anyways has always been like that. To give an example, I did one just even 2 years ago, maybe for Joe Barr race up in the north, and it was at 3. I was going to do the 550, and then I'd lost a crew member, so I switched to the 3. It was the 300k or 325k, and I switched to that, but I probably went out too hard for that one. It's a shorter race, and the nutritional strategy then was just like when you're pushing yourself very hard and you're trying to ingest a certain amount, it becomes very difficult. So I might have got it away with it at a slightly more relaxed pace, shall we say. So I suppose, yeah, look, the thing is, I suppose, no, you're tested out in training for like up to kind of 6 hours, but there's still a likelihood that you might have problems from like, I get in problems in races. If I get them, it's probably from like 8 hours, 8 to 10 kind of onwards, like, and you don't normally train it that long. So people should assume that you may well have problems. So I'd say have a few different options of food, like, you know, kind of the carbohydrate kind of powders and stuff like that, but maybe have some real food sandwiches and different things, because you'll find that like you don't want to be stuck, I suppose, and like not having any appetite for the sweet stuff. So just have a good mix, I suppose. And you know, and then if you're starting really fast and maybe ending fast, you could take maybe the gels or something then, but don't you know, when you're going, that basically is, you know yourself, the higher the intensity, that the more difficult it is for the stomach to process. So you just need to be but I don't want to kind of say take this or that, because everyone is really different, and you know, it's only through the trial and error, I think, really over the next, you know, month or two, people should be sussing that out.
So you don't want to be turning up on the day, buying a big box of gels you've never eaten before, and protein bars or carb bars, and going, right, I've just mapped out because this guy has done this for him. But for your stomach, you've never experienced it before. So, you know, you need to be, I mean, fueling is something you need to train for, isn't it, for weeks beforehand? You need to get used to the food you take and what works for you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you should just be going out now and like kind of almost be using what you plan to use for the race, and even if it works for 6 hours, whatever, like just know that there's still a probably, you know, chance that it might not work at hour 8 or 10. So what are you going to do then? And then I'd say to people like, look, if it's happened to me, most races I've done in the ultras is get stomach problems at some point, and they might actually have to wait a few hours for you don't want to eat anything, and you have to kind of just feed yourself water, and it comes back around. And I say, if that happens, you know, just stick with it. Like, because the other thing with ultras is like, you know, you feel like you're kind of dying, and you think, you know, what you don't want to do in that instance is collapse things to say that like, oh, that's it, it's going to get worse, because you can find that it can actually just keep plugging along at a kind of more aerobic pace, and then things can turn around quick enough, and you know, you might find in 2 hours time you're flying again, and that in that time, and in the time you'll make up, you know, you can actually still make good progress. And I suppose ultras, it's probably long enough that you could actually, you don't want that to happen, but you can actually still recover from it at the same time.
So, I mean, there's a lot to be said for something like an old ham sandwich or a bag of potatoes, isn't there? Is there any kind of go-to food you have, let's say, when you're right into it, you don't want gooey stuff? Is there one kind of food that is your kind of...
Yeah, I suppose things like these brioche buns are kind of good, you know, they're kind of like, they're buttery or a bit sugary, kind of, they're but not too much so, right? But you can stick a bit of like slice of ham in there, and then that's and some butter, good source of fats, and kind of that gives you, like, if you kind of even had one of those every like 4 hours or so, that's a good variety, you know, you're mixing it up. But yeah, that's probably a good solid option, really. And then you can still have, like, you could probably have like a chocolate bar, a small one, like mini sized ones every few hours as well. That's not going to damage too much. But again, it's just about trying it out, because you know, it's some carb powders can actually go a bit haywire if you eat something simple sugar like a
All right.
chocolate bar, you know. So it's
Yeah.
kind of having tested it out, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, things like the brioche buns or like just ham and cheese sandwich, they're like, you know, you can't go wrong with those really. Like, yeah.
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 And and you got to look after your stomach. It's not just about the muscles and the other organs, you know.
Yeah.
If
No,
your
that's
stomach starts fighting against you.
yeah, yeah. Well, this is it. Once the stomach goes, you're really, it's tricky. It's I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but like, you know, it feels like all your energy's gone, like, you know, and
Yeah.
you're just kind of your brain, like, you know, it's like your glucose, everything sort of shuts down almost. But yeah, I know you're right. It's the nutrition is a big part of it, and just trying to not go kind of too. You always like need to rein yourself back a bit if you're going over some of the big climbs, not to go too hard, because you know, I suppose there's time for like getting Kings of the Mountain stuff, but like you kind of, if you go too hard and
So
you're kind of,
when you hit the corker, right, you've
yeah,
got it wind on your back, right?
yeah,
How do you not let yourself just absolutely drill the corker with that tailwind?
yeah. I
Do
suppose
you
that,
follow
yeah,
a power meter, or how do you discipline yourself over that distance?
yeah. I do have a power meter, and I suppose it's, and then you're kind of keeping it, but you're keeping, I suppose, a rate at your heart rate. So I find like my heart rate will be quite high maybe for the first 5-6 hours, and might go out kind of harder, and then but it kind of stabilizes out after that. But yeah, things like the corker, like I suppose it depends on the context, right? So if I was in the front, or kind of if I'm pacing well, I'd just say, look, don't blow it up by going up too hard. But on the flip side, if you were like, I don't know, you kind of you know that there's two people up the road really close by, and you really want to make grounds, like it's then an opportunity, right? Okay, now is the time, if you think you're a good climber, to actually make a little bit of time up. So yeah, I suppose it's just, yeah, try not to push it too hard in the red, I suppose. And you'll know that, I guess, it's yeah, I suppose it's different, but trying to be a little bit sensible about it, I guess. Yeah, but it's difficult at times. I appreciate that, if you're kind of, you know, if you're competitive and you see someone, you know,
Yeah.
200 meters up the road, that's racing. Yeah.
You just don't want to suffer first down the
Yeah,
line.
yeah, yeah. Maybe
So
that's the time for the gel, I suppose. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So Sean, after COVID, like, did you find it hard coming back, getting the intensity, getting the distance back up, the energy back up, and you know, how has that affected your training up to including the Western Challenge and further events beyond that?
Yeah, it has affected, actually. I suppose COVID itself was really mild, and you know, it was in the house. We all had it, and then I got it last, and then it lasted a number of days. But I think got back on the bike after, you know, day 5 or something, after our weekend kind of later, and the advice is to take it easy. So I kind of did so, and I was at 3 days back, 4 days back on the bike, and then I came down with another virus, and I think that was set me back a few weeks kind of further, actually. So so I found it very hard. I think it's you're seeing a lot of teams as well, like kind of out in the peloton, like they're talking a lot about teams being decimated, and a lot of people like kind of taking longer this year, like missing classics and stuff, because a lot of teams are taking longer to recover. And I suppose
Yeah,
everyone's
same
different,
like
but
Alpha
yeah,
Van der Poel's team, you know,
yeah.
very slow to come back as a team.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and I suppose it's taken longer than I thought, and I suppose it's kind of, then I was maybe a bit too impatient going back. Maybe I should take another few days before going back. And it's hard to know, because I suppose in our circumstance we had the little baby, kind of like you weren't sleeping at night anyway, so it's kind of when you run down, you can easier pick up stuff. But no, it look, put it this way, it's kind of, you know, kind of 6 weeks or so really is like the kind of, it took.
Yeah, really.
It kind of wiped things out, yeah, before
Yeah.
you're fully back. It felt like, to having that kind of energy levels, which is, yeah. So, but
So
yeah,
what's the year looking like for you now from now on?
so yeah, the year, like the plans had to change a bit. So I think like I'm doing an ultra event race in Mayo, but that's kind of now solely as a kind of like almost a training event, you know, to get ready for the challenge.
What's that
Um,
called?
yeah, that one's called the Wild Mayo Ultra. It's organized by Park Mary, and it's 650k. So that's on in the 13th of May,
Yeah.
and that goes all around Mayo. So I'm looking forward to that. And but I think the one in the challenge, yeah, hopefully like to be in good shape for the challenge. But I think it probably won't be in the. I'd say for this season now, because of COVID, probably won't be in the best shape until August, September. So I've got the Donegal 555 in August, and might have another crack at the Mizen Malin, like, to improve the time maybe again in August, September. So we'll see at that point, yeah, just how the season's gone, I suppose, yeah. But yeah, that's the thing, you know, with COVID, it really, you know, you kind of throws things out of sync slightly, yeah.
Yeah. Sure. So you don't know till you get back on the road and you actually, you know,
yeah,
your 20 hours, whatever, 18 hours, would you be 18?
Yeah,
Who knows?
Yeah, hard to know. I
Who
suppose
knows?
as soon as possible, but yeah, it depends. I suppose wind is the thing. Look, you don't know. But yeah, it's 17, 18 hours anyways. Yeah,
Ooh, that's
yeah,
a
long.
challenge.
Yeah, big challenge. Yeah, but yeah, I'm sure you'll have to get involved in one of them now soon. You have the legs for it, no doubt.
For the first 100K, then.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. We'll be screaming for the car then.
Yeah.
And let's say, here's a kind of a bit of an after-wall question. As if there was one ultra cyclist that you could line up against in the Western Challenge, who would it be?
Who would it be? Look, I suppose people like this. People like Joe Barr. I've raced lots of the same races, but we've never actually raced at the same time. So I'd probably be good to Joe Barr. I know he's kind of, yeah, he's talked about doing it if plans change. You know, he's planning to go to race across America, but he'd be a good one. And then there's people like, I suppose, look, there's lots of people who I suppose they might not call themselves full ultra cyclists yet, but I think we're going to see in the next couple of years loads of like, I put it this way, there's probably people doing the ultra challenge this year that, you know, I think will do really, really well, because they're kind of, if you can do 100 or 200K really fast, I don't think you'll have any problem really doing it if you get the nutrition right. So yeah, let's see, maybe Owen McGrath himself will get on the bike and we'll see what he's
You're
made
in trouble
of.
if he does.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, no, look, there's lots of people, and then things, you know, people like Ronan McLaughlin, these type of people as well. Like, you know, he's got the leg injuries this year and stuff. But you know, I think they're people like really, they've shown, like, when you kind of people who move up from like the 100-mile mark to, like, you know, that it's not a, and he's done it really well successfully, things then at doing like those. So I think we'll see a lot more of that happening, you know. But then you have people like Roy Devlin and people like this who are kind of, you know, there was one in addition of the Donegal 555 a few years ago, and then there was a young lad came second or third as well. A good battle, Roy Devlin, I think, that year. And you know, these are the people, like, they're actually, people may not call them full-on ultra cyclists, but they'd certainly have great talent, I think, to do it. So any of those people, like, you know, look, there's lots of, I think it's become more competitive and makes for more exciting racing, I guess. Yeah, which is what you want.
Yeah, the more cyclists that you have around you, you know, pushing you at that level. You know,
that's it. Yeah,
you're not gonna ease off. You know.
Yeah.
Well, Lucas, thanks a million for joining us. Now, look forward to seeing you then on the 17th and 18th of June.
Yeah, looking forward to it, man. Yeah, coming great event.
Yeah, hope the training goes well now, and you know, it's always a challenge, like, for all of us, kind of mixing family and work and everything, and you know, but like you say, about getting out there, getting the routine going, you know, and
that's it. We're in the good weather now, so yeah, no excuses. Yeah.
And what bike have you?
So I have well, I work for a company, Canyon. It's not the bike one, but I have a Canyon Speedmax TT bike, and then I've considering, like, in the market, maybe if I can convince my wife to get a new road bike. The other ones, I've got a Specialized road bike, but it's probably 12 years old, so I'm saying it might be time for a new one. but yeah, no, I suppose I've done the in terms of bike, I've used the time trial bike for Mizen Malin and things like the Donegal 555. So I used the TT bike the whole way without changing. And
tell me, how is that, like, being in TT position for that distance? I mean, does it absolutely strain the body, or is it all about getting used to it?
I think it's about getting used to it. I suppose I'd use it a lot for the training, you know, and it's I suppose, look, a lot of people, like, it's not that well, yeah, it's the bike I have, I find it very comfortable, but you know, a lot of people, I suppose, would take a road bike for ultras anyways and stick the clip-on aero bar. So it's actually, the difficulty I have with that is that you kind of, then it's a road bike, but you're trying to get into an aero position with clip-on, so it's not right. So I think with this one, it works for me, I suppose. That you're not in the full aero all the time. You can't sit up a bit, particularly in climbing. So it's a light enough bike for climbing. So
Did you train yourself into that position, really?
Yeah, I think so.
Turning up on the day and going, right, I'll be down on the bars all day, and about an hour out the road, your body seizes up.
Yeah. I suppose it's that's what you don't want, I suppose. But it's no, I suppose it's just one of those. I need to practice on whatever bike you're using, and I know a lot of people maybe do this kind of approach of like TT bike and then switch bikes, and you switch bikes. But I prefer keep it kind of simple and just say like, look, here's a bike, I'm out cycling for the day, and kind of.
People would do that. They might switch bikes at the bottom of a big climb.
A lot of people would for the climbs and stuff like that, and they kind of, I'd say most people do, like, whereas I'm kind of probably, I don't know if I'm saying unique, but I tend to kind of just stick to one bike throughout, and but it's not much crack going up Gapma Moor, things like that, places when you're, but you probably prefer to have a lighter bike on those occasions, but it's doable, and you're weighing up like what's the time difference, I suppose, saved between those. No
matter how well you set up a bike, there's different bikes are going to have small little differences, aren't they? Physiologically on your body.
So are you signed up for the for which one of them for this June?
Oh, I'll be doing support now. Are you
okay
in the car or waving a flag or something?
You're not tempted to do the 500, no?
Jeez, I don't know. Owen will probably get around me by then, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's hard to say no to Owen. But fair play to them, like, there's serious organisation going into it, and it's like, even already now, there's over 100 sign-ups. It's filling up really quick, like, even this early stage. So, the word is really getting out. It's going to be.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like the top events in the country, for ultra cycling. So I think it's great. Here, hopefully it goes all well now, and
So far so good anyway. It's all looking good,
It's
a great route, like between the Burn and Galway City and Connemara. Sure. Where else would you want to be?
Absolutely.
So back on home turf. So we're at Connemara. Well, we'll see you down on the prom anyway.
We'll see you out on the road, I'm sure, sometime soon. Anyways, good.
Might see out at the challenge races.
The Challenge Race League, I'm sure.
Yeah. Sean Hernon, thanks a million now for joining us, and really appreciate you, being part of this, and really looking forward to it. It's going to be a class event.
100%. It's going to be epic. Yeah.
Well,
all right, thanks, Richie.
Best up with the training. Feck on.
Feck long fall.
Long falling.